Right, okay. Straight face. Right. Okay, so, hi Jack. Welcome to this interview today with Digital Orphan and Cinto. First off, thanks for being here, man, and sharing your
No
experiences
problem.
and honestly just going through everything. I appreciate it, and I know, as well as a lot of parents are going to know that it's hard to think about this sort of stuff, so thanks, man. We
No
did just
problem.
crack a joke before this happened, by the way, so he's not smiling at the subject. It's because of something else, but you've got to keep happy when you're doing this stuff. My first kind of question to you, mate, is like, why'd you join us in Incinto and Digital Off? Like, what was your kicker for you?
Yeah, I think I've had first of all, thank you for inviting me on. I think it's all important to talk. I've had a career with working with children for coaching football, multi-sports, etc. for 15 years now. I know I don't look old enough for that, but I am, unfortunately. So why I've always as most of us do, always care about the welfare of children, and especially my own. I've got a stepdaughter of 16. I've got a daughter of four going on 40. I've got a wife, so standard. Coaching, as I said, kids for 15 years now, various in sports activities, etc., etc. And I've got a real passion in helping people. My background in technology as well is one of the main reasons why I wanted to mix the two together, which is Incinto is a perfect platform to do so. Hence why I wanted to get involved, and the idea of keeping the children safe on the big bad web. Now, I say big bad web, it's not all bad. It's there for a purpose. It's there for a good use. But I'm sure when we go through it today, we can all relate with some of the stories I'm going to come out with.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up when it was like, I think 13 years old. I hit year 7 secondary school, and that was when I got my LG cookie, which, by the way, I hated so much because I had the stylus on it and you'd like press it hard and you couldn't use your fingers. But that was when Facebook and stuff kicked off like the first time, and then Snapchat came across a couple of years later. And it wasn't great, but at the same time, having access to the web, I got to do more of what I enjoyed when I didn't fit into school. I got to learn how programs work, build websites, which they didn't teach us in school, how to build websites and work with computers. So I got to do what I loved because of the internet. So, you're right, there is good and there is bad. And I think, like, a good question from there, mate, is, in a perfect world, what would the internet look like for you and your family?
Yeah, I think. I mean, that is a good question. I'm of a generation where I needed to be stopped to go out rather than being on a phone or a laptop or an iPad now. And there's so many different devices. I mean, I can receive a text message via my watch now, a smartwatch.
Yeah.
There's that's being banned, let's say, in school now because that's a deterrent. I think that it has to be fun naturally with a child. It has to be fun, and also adults. Let's not beat around the bush. Adults need to find fun in stuff. Otherwise, if it's not fun, people tend to not use something or do it. But I think it has to have boundaries. It has to have security. It has to have these nasty people in the world that can hide behind a device. Who are looking for vulnerable people. And I say vulnerable people, not just children, because there are children out there. I mean, Maya, who's my stepdaughter, she's unbelievably clever with a computer. She's absolutely better than me. And I think most children now are scary in the sense of they know how to use it more than, say, the professionals that may be trying to protect them.
Yeah, the power dynamics
but I'm
changed.
talking about talking about, but also I'm talking about the elderly. You've got the elderly and everyone that needs to be protected from this. So the ideal platform, the ideal sort of internet would be a safe environment where if I Google something, as everyone says, I'll Google it. You get the true answer. Now you Google things nowadays, and it's pages after pages full of content and you don't really know what to believe, or you accidentally click on something, because sometimes you can just accidentally click on something. So I think a safe but also fun environment where people can learn as well at their fingertips.
Yeah, and like, I think the next advent of of Google is essentially it's just AI, isn't it? Where like you will type something in, and if an AI, deludes itself, or it's been poisoned in terms of knowledge, or it's positioned in such a way ideologically that it disagrees with the mainstream, or say your position on, say, a societal issue or a debate, it could feed you necessarily the wrong answer. And that's a dangerous piece there as well. And I think the challenge is, like, with Google, it's different because you've got hundreds of pages of sites that are run by individual people and individual companies. And, sometimes you can have a state that has, like, say, 100 of those pages and they're using them for a disinformation campaign. But with AI, it's one centralized piece that feeds you the answers, and it could be wrong. And you don't know how it's going to be wrong because it can sound so convincing in its tone of voice when it tells you, right? So that's an interesting one. So,
and I also think, just on that as well, I also think if people aren't comfortable in the real world, as I call it, i.e. they have anxiety, depression, or whatever, they can start, it can spiral into a real dark place, and then believing misinformation from a bot, let's say, or from a site, and it then becomes factually true. It becomes, that is their truth. Whereas I think if you speak to someone, if you see them face to face, I have a rule in our house where if you see them face to face, then you know them. If you don't talk to anyone that you've never met in person. Those types of standard practice to most people, but now with the internet, you trust a lot more people you don't know, and you wouldn't walk into an environment where, now certainly you wouldn't walk into an environment or a player wherever you go and just trust the first person you see. You wouldn't do it, but seemingly everybody trusts what's on the internet nowadays, and that's dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm a fan of X. Like, I mean, no, and don't get me wrong, because there are a lot of people that will jump down on my throne of that. But then again, I hate Facebook because of what they've done to kids and what they've done to me. Personally, I hate them for that, and I can't stand Zuckerberg. But one thing that's quite interesting is what you said about that, like that cognitive bias. So, for instance, I'll go on X and I'll see, like, your For You page has accounts you don't follow, and it's based on, like, the algorithm based on what it thinks you're going to be interested in next, and how long you've been hovering on another post, and buying and selling data to understand what you've done on other websites and what you search to figure out what you're going to want next and keep it on the platform. And I see, like, things pop up and it's like, conservative gets stabbed in the neck in Germany. That was a story that came out recently. And there was a bloke tackled to the ground. He stabbed another police officer in the neck. And you can see how the narrative's different when people don't post a link to a source, but they put an image with what looks like a link tag in the bottom left. So it looks like a link, but it's not a link. And then people automatically believe it and they don't click on it because they want to see the next thing, because they're stuck on the platform. So they absorb and attract and go, yeah, that works, and then go down to the next one, and it becomes an extreme pocket where they're sucked into that, what's it called, an echo chamber, where everything they read agrees with them, and they agree with everything. And then when they see something slightly more extreme, it's not as if it's a jog down the street, it's just a step to the right, and they'll keep doing it. And then eventually, they're at that point where they become an extremist to a degree, whether it's left or right, and that's a big issue as well. I think that's kind of understated a lot with kids, because there is a lot to worry about in terms of sexual exploitation, these forums where they're guiding young people to take their own lives, things like that. But I think that bias in society is also a serious issue that we need to address as well. But since there's so much to cover, way so much to cover, the next kind of question I have to ask you, mate, and I appreciate you being here for this one, but can you tell me your story of what happened?
Yeah, sure. And again, I must reference, I know we're not alone on this. So I know there'll be people that can relate, and like anything in life. So as I said, my stepdaughter, just over the pandemic, so what's that, 4 years ago now? Something like that. She was 13, something like that.
Oh, yeah, it was
13, 14.
4 years ago it started now?
Yeah. So obviously we were all home, and the online space in terms of schools changed. So they were going onto Teams to do classroom sessions, and everything changed, and there was uncertainty. A lot of uncertainty, certainly with more of the adults rather than the kids, because the kids just absolutely loved being home. They were like, yes, great, amazing, this is incredible. She goes to private school as well, so academically she absolutely loves her work. So in fact, she was probably the polar opposite and really wanted to go to school. But it gave her an opportunity. It gave us an opportunity to be at home, and we took the positives from that. but we noticed a sort of change in her behavior. And we noticed a change in her behavior, eating. She was becoming agitated. She wasn't eating a lot. And it was quite worrying for me and my wife. And it was one sunny day, I suppose we can call it a sunny day, because it was quite warm.
It is sunny today. It's kind of nice.
Yeah, one sunny day. And she was helping me strip wallpaper upstairs. And just by chance, as we all do, just have a gut feeling, my wife checked her phone and found loads of messages from this individual, let's say, about different things. It was just general chit chat, but also then it went into more sort of sexual things, and it went into more role play things, and yeah, it spiraled out into that essentially. Now she got more traction because she's very clever, as I said to you before. She's very good at digital content. She was creating animations, and these animations were attracting a lot of attention. I mean, just to put it in context, she had over 100,000 followers on TikTok, which was incredible.
Can she intern with us? She can help us with marketing. That'd be amazing.
Again, honing in on that is amazing. But for her experience, again, talking about the internet and the perks of it and the cons of it, I suppose. She's had a very bad experience for having 100,000 followers, where really a lot of people look at it and go, boom, it should be really good.
She could start her own business out of the back of that. Yeah.
We allowed her to go online. So she went as in online in terms of live, to show off her creations, her animations. Very artistic, as I said, but she wasn't allowed to show her face because she was young, and that was what it was. And my wife and her father sort of monitored the comments. All good, all fine, but there was a lot of people on that live that you'd have no idea, and the comments were just flowing in. And we noticed the content was getting darker and darker, as I said, with the behavior changes. We just noticed it got a little bit more darker. So back to the day when my wife sort of discovered it, naturally shocking for my wife to read and see. And we noticed it went from TikTok and this, what do we call them? Abuser, or whatever. I've got stronger words for him, but anyway.
Tell me about it. The groomer? Is it the groomer?
Yeah,
the PC.
Took her from one app to another app, which we didn't know much about, which was called Discord. We had no idea. I mean, as I said, middle-aged people, but we had zero. I've never heard of this app in my life, and I'm quite tech-savvy. I've worked in the tech industry for 8 years, as well as working with children. I know a lot of the sort of apps, and I know I'm on the main ones, if you like, Facebook, Instagram, X, those types of things. Never heard of Discord in my life. Turns out they were used for mainly gaming. That's what it was designed to do. But she was somehow taking off the app that she was protected, so say, from my wife and her dad and myself, etc. And she was put onto this platform. Bearing in mind, she had some protective controls parental controls on her phone that still allowed this to go through. So it still went under the radar. But I mean, it probably wasn't set up correctly anyway. But like I said, go on.
No, sorry. It's just the thing is that bell end will know exactly what's happened. He knows that the control's set up on TikTok.
Yeah.
He knows that the control's set on the device. He knows, or she knows, that Discord is allowed, and he knows there's no filter set up on Discord yet. So it's just transport.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And again, I was an investor in Incento before. You know, I wasn't. I had no real. I was quite naive to it, and I guess looking back, if I was talking to myself back then, you know, right now I was naive to it, as I think we all are. You know, we all are. And I think the really big point of all of this is check your child's phone, because if my wife hadn't done that, we would have been looking at a bigger problem. Because then it went on to obviously before the discovery part. I know I'm jumping backwards and forwards, but it's important to do so. Before the discovery part, she found out she was self-harming, and she's she struggles with her emotions anyway, emotional control. She's got autism. We've only recently just got her diagnosed with that, but back then we didn't really know, but we had some idea that she was struggling with certain situations, her emotions, etc. And to be fair, I think autism saved her from going to next steps, and I'll come on to that in a minute.
Okay.
But so there was reams and reams when we discovered it on that day. There was reams and reams of conversation between TikTok and Discord, and it was all role play stuff. Not the most shocking sort of content anyone would see, and what I've read recently and what people have found out, etc., meeting up and things like that. But still shocking enough as a parent to read that they're having role play about sex, and she's never had sex before, clearly because she's young. Him saying he's going in the bath, and really sort of information whereby you are trying to incite the next stages.
Jesus Christ, these people are sick, man.
You know, and I go just briefly. I go back to the autism diagnosis. I believe if she didn't have that, she wouldn't have been as naive, and she would have just and because she kind of, while she went along with it, because this person was named, this individual was named himself, and she kind of had this whole relationship, if you like, over 6 months, I think it was, 6 month sort of period, whereby she was having these conversations, but she never went to the next stages. You know, and I've worked with kids, I mentor children for my day job, for my company now, and I know there's kids out there that are far more sexually active younger. I know that for a fact.
Yep.
And more clued up on sex and things like that might have done that. You know, we read about those stories.
It was in the press the other day.
And then
it was a 12-year-old girl, and there was 6 young boys from as young as 12 years old, and it was a case of rape, a little 12-year-old girl, and it's a 12-year-old boy. It's insane. It is insane. And
you think those types of things, and as I said, it's shocking to read. My wife she works with children. She works with special educational need children. Couldn't be more qualified in this household, but it still happened to us. And there's my story in a title, if you like, that you can never be, just because you've got this experience or that experience don't mean it won't happen to you. Just because your child goes to private school, don't think that they're not suffering from something. Those triggers might not just be naughtiness or teenagery, because that could have quite comfortably come down to puberty or teenagery periods, those types of things, those not eating. Do you know what I mean? There's loads of stuff, but check your child's phone and have open conversations, because straight after that, we all came down, we sat down as a family, and the first thing we both said was, it's not your fault. You're not in trouble.
Yeah, it's not
and
my
the
fault.
First reaction of her was not necessarily relief, was, am I ever going to talk to him again?
Oh, bless her.
And that, to me, was probably the most shocking bit out of it all. Because she put her hood up, she went in herself, and she said, am I ever going to talk to him again? And the answer was no.
Sorry, so just
because it's not who you think. Just
so I have the context, mate. So she basically saw it as like she was being forced to break up with. Like, yeah, she actually formed a relationship with this person, because she had the mind. She had the idea of him. Yeah. She fell in love with the idea of him, but it wasn't him. He was a monster. Yeah. And the process of, this is wrong. He's wrong. Whoever's at the end of it is wrong. It's not who you think it is. You're not in the wrong. You're not in trouble, but we are going to have to call the police. And there was nothing back from her. Okay, fine. Called the police. They were around like a murder had happened. Walked her through everything. Again, reiterated what we said in terms of it wasn't her fault, etc., etc. Took some details. And that sort of kind of happened. And I say it's happened because it is. It just does.
you've recognized something's not right, you've intervened, so the intervention's happened, and then it's the long process going forward. As anyone's experienced, if they've experienced trauma and something terrible in their life, it's a long road forward. And you either go one way or the other. So you either let it affect you or you do something positive. And again, this is, I reiterate it, this is why I wanted to get involved with Incento, because I feel a part of it. Not that I was directly, I wasn't the one who was being groomed. I feel like I was in the best place to give that platform for anyone to prevent it going forward. And then the days, the weeks, and the months after, it was taking away the platform, so taking away the phone, taking away the devices from her. And I think that was important, not because she just wanted to reach out. That was the thing. She was trying to reach out now.
To him?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
So she's trying to find herself, I suppose, and it's more, I don't think it felt like a release. Some people would say, I feel like a release, someone's helping me. I think for her, it was very much the other way around to start with. I think now she understands it completely. Of course, she completely understands it. But then it was very much trying to get back, trying to go back to where she worked. She enjoyed it. She liked it. She enjoyed that period.
Well, that's why it went on for 6 months, right?
Yeah. And then it was very much getting her back to herself, that the child that we loved and adored, and that took time, that took teamwork, that took fights, that took tears, that took you name it, that was there. Obviously the police needed to see the evidence, if you like, and then when she finally got her phone back, it was then limiting what access she had more to her phone, deleting her accounts, those types of things, and almost starting again. And for her, it seemed a big step back, because again, as I always say with social media, it's all about your likes, it's all about your comments, it's all about your popularity.
Attention.
That is what you drive yourself through, and that is what makes you happy, or that is what makes you sad. And that is the sad reality we live in. Everybody wants a like, everybody wants a comment, and if you only get one like on a post you post, that is the be all and end all for some people. And if you that is all about recognition, whereas before it used to be a pat on the back, it used to be you receive a certificate,
trophy,
you did something good, you achieved something, exactly, a trophy, anything like that, you get a physical sort of recommendation, whatever it may be, you got something, and you got something, whether that's, like I said, going forward in work, you get a promotion, more money, that type of thing. But nowadays it's all about your likes. And for her, 100,000 followers, which I get. I mean, it took a long time. It did. I do get it to a point. Not that I've ever been about that life. I haven't. I can't fathom to understand her. But I got where she was coming from, in the sense of you built a community, and that's what she wanted to be. I mean, most kids want to be a social media influencer nowadays. That's the first thing that most kids come up with.
Yeah, mate, it's bloody awful, right? Like I see, when I used to use TikTok, and I began using TikTok because I wanted to see what it would do to my brain to a degree. I want to know what would happen, and because I smoked for 10 years. I quit nicotine, by the way. Got rid of it completely, cold turkeyed.
Nice.
Feel a lot better in my life. Like I can feel nerve endings I haven't felt in bloody years. It's amazing. I can
brilliant. Well done.
And it's really difficult to quit. And I use social media in the same way, because when I started smoking, I wanted to know, stupidly, as a kid, I wanted to know what it was like to be addicted to smoking. Really unhealthy thinking. Well, I found out. I couldn't quit. It cost me a fortune as well. But then I did the same thing with TikTok, where I started using it once a night, like when I get into bed. This is what a kid would do. They get into bed, they go on TikTok, and they start scrolling, right? You put yourself in a situation, you see what you won't see entirely what they see, but you see to a degree what they'd see. And eventually I started seeing that right step, so this is bad, oh, this is worse. Look at Birmingham in the 1930s, it was all white. Now look at it today and it's all black, it's really bad, oh. And then you look at and then I started noticing that I was scrolling more and more, and I couldn't sleep. And then before I knew it was 3 a.m, and I was like, So if I can get addicted to this, God, how easy is it for a kid, right? But the really disturbing thing I found, and I knew it was happening already, but to see it is worse, is when there was it was 4:30 in the morning, and there was a little girl on there. She was in a school uniform, and she'd been up all night long talking to people on live stream. And I was thinking, what are you doing here? You shouldn't be here. Like, and she was arguing with the people that were commenting, and you could see she was in real distress, and she's got to be about 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like natural, like it was a normal thing. And I know it basically is a normal thing, but it's just so bad. And you know, coming off the back of this, the question I got to ask you is, you know, you said about going through the tears, the turmoil. When you started to take those kind of devices, when you started to like restrict a bit, how was that? What did you come up against? How did you deal with it? Because a lot of parents, even before this sort of thing happens, they look at trying to do that, and they come up against a fight, and they back off more than they should, and they struggle. And I you know, I can't understand it, and I know the parents can. So just keen to see what you came up against.
Look, it's like with anything in life. It's about how you do it. It's about how you come up, how it's communicated, the purpose, why you're doing it. You're not fighting against it. You're not saying you're wrong, you're this, you're that, because you're going to be faced with objections straight away, and it's not going to work. I mean, obviously the worst thing happened for us, that it was quite self-explanatory. This is not right, this is doing for your safety, etc. And we played the police card quite a longer period of time than we needed to, essentially. So we said the police had her phone, her devices, her account, and those types of things.
So you removed the responsibility from yourselves, from her perspective.
Kind of, yeah. So the police needed stuff, and that's not entirely untrue. It's just there to, it's just there to protect, and that's what it was. And then it was the controls, but it was extremely tough. But as I always say, time will help. Sticking together, me and my wife were strong all throughout. Everyone was strong throughout, obviously, and it was very much a case of walking her through the next steps and making sure that she became the person that she used to be, and recognizing that this was not normal. Because that's the biggest thing about grooming or anything like this, is it becomes the norm. It becomes the same with it's the same with the addiction. You wake up in the morning, you reference smoking. Most people will go downstairs and make a coffee or a cup of tea and go out for a fag.
That was one of the best things I used to do. I used to love that.
But it wasn't, right? It was only because it gave you that small dose of dopamine in your brain, and it was a routine that you actually liked, because you as an individual really, and we all do, love a routine. So actually that's what happens. Whereas if you did the same thing, but instead of the cigarette went into the gym, you'd have a better feeling for longer. And they are just the small tweaks to your routine, let's say, that you need to do. So her picking up the phone and talking to this individual instead of picking up the phone and doing something else it was just a routine thing. And like I said, with the control she had on her phone, we then found out that she was up till 4 a.m. like you just referenced. You up to 4 a.m. flicking and scrolling and blah blah. She was talking to this person. So yeah, the process was long. You've got to stick it out. And at the end of the day, if you're ever faced with this, and God forbid no one does, but I know there is out there plenty of people every single day suffering with this. In just our case, there was 15 people that the police had reports in the area that we live in of this same thing happening. And the individual was from Birmingham or wherever it was.
Well, I mean, it was. It came out I think it was last week. I think it was early last week, about the report of 300 million kids a year being, solicited for sex online. And I saw the reports from the IWF for the years preceding, 2012 onwards. 2012 it was around 6,000, 7,000, something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. Fine. It was still horrible. And that slowly increased as more kids got into tech, and then we saw COVID, which got shoot up. And then they changed how they do the research, and now it's 300 million kids. And I thought, well, I already knew that, because it's so evident, right? You can't walk into every single street and see it happen. God, there's only 7,000 because it's not the case.
No, and there's no coincidence, right? There's no coincidence on things getting younger, like sex and talking about sex and smoking and depression and anxiety and the words and every term. There's no coincidence why this is getting younger. It's because of the internet. There's access. You know, it is the access that these kids and people are getting access to earlier than what they would when me and you were younger. It's as simple as that. The difference is now parents are, like I said, there's a big get off your phone, but you have to give, in my opinion, obviously being working in sport, you have to give almost a reason for an alternative, right? Why am I coming off this phone? Well, the reason I believe why my daughter wants to watch YouTube sometimes, my 4-year-old, is because me and my wife are eating dinner, as an example. We've all done that, you know, at a dinner table. But we're with her, we're sat with her. Now, if we were going to say, I'll go to the park, would she want the phone? No, she wouldn't, because she wants to go to the park. So there's adding that alternative in, right? And like I said, there's no coincidence of people knowing all this stuff younger. It's just the internet. So I think openly talking about, like we did, we openly spoke about these things and why it was wrong, and openly talk about it, as hard as it is. As hard as it is, you don't need to be a professional to talk.
Nope.
You don't.
You really
just
don't.
Talk about it.
Just be human. Talk.
Yeah, just talk about it. Just reference that. Just protect your own, and almost don't be naive as adults that they don't know anything about this. They do.
Yeah, they know a hell of a lot about
it. They do. Think about when we were younger. You may or may not hid stuff from your family. Everyone does. It's white lies. You know what I mean?
Sneaky as hell.
But that's my point. So if you treat your kids as the same sort of way, then you know, and you can almost have a joke and a laugh about it. And that's the biggest issue. You know, yes, keeping kids on set, but this is gonna roll on. This is gonna roll on. It's about the education piece. It's about educating what's right and what's wrong. It's about understanding that it's not the real world. Some of the stuff you see. You know, people don't always have massive, let's say, boobs as an example, or massive, big abs, or do you know what I mean? Someone's big, perfect world with Lamborghinis. People work hard for those sort of stuff.
Yeah, I know.
These are the types of things you see. You know, people, but that's what's ingrained in their brain.
Yeah.
And then when an opportunity presents itself, as I said, mine didn't have many friends, right? And I suppose looking back, she looked at this as, oh, this is a friend. You know, and this is what this groomer harped on. You know, this is what he latched onto.
Well,
he or she, I don't know.
She must have trusted him with a lot of private stuff that she wouldn't have told others, because he's so far away, right? So when I was younger, I you know, things like Omegle and stuff like that. Yeah, well, I was bullied as a kid a lot, so I spent a lot of time in my room. You know, didn't get along with academia, wasn't a fan of it, still not. But that's just for me. For other people, it works great, and that's absolutely fine. You know, we need more scientists. Go to academia. But when I was in my room, I used to go in those chat rooms when I was bored, and then I made a lot of friends out of it. So I still have a friend called Angie out in the United States, who I've known, got to be about 12, 13 years now, and one out in Greece, who I've known for almost as long, and you know, those two, absolutely lovely. We used to confide a lot of secrets in each other because she was so far away and I was so far away from her. There was no damage you could do within a friendship group. You know, the risk was zero that you could cause trouble for her. So she'd express things to you and you'd express things to her that you're uncomfortable around other people doing. And I imagine that would have been a very similar scenario to what your little one and what other little ones are encountering online with these people, if we can call them people. I personally don't think we should call them people. That are targeting children and going after them.
Absolutely.
Because it's they're clever and they're social creatures and that's what they do.
Yeah, humans want to be trusted. They want to be listened to. If you can find one common ground and you're away with a relationship, people trust. As soon as you've got a common ground, or we all do it. We've all trusted someone that we've got something in common with. You know, depending on what level of trust you give, but majority of the time, if you find a common ground or you like someone's face, if the face fits, that's a good saying. And that's not literally, oh, someone's got a beautiful face, someone's got an ugly face. That is like if a face fits in the sense of if you enjoy the right things and you like the right things and you agree with what their point of views are, except it's just a conversation, and that's the scary bit. That's the scary bit. But you don't know what's behind a screen.
Yeah.
You don't know what's behind a computer. You just don't. And that's where, like I said, from my perspective, I want to make the world a safer place, but also give that education back to parents and children to help and be in the best environment or in the best position, should I say, to help whoever is getting exposed.
There's one thing I did, so when I was a kid, I didn't want to. My parents never knew I went on Omegle. They never knew I had friends in the United States. They never knew I had friends in Greece. I'd never met these people. And hell would I tell them? And so I told them after I got ballsy enough to tell them. And I knew I could get away with it. Because I know tech, and I know they don't know tech, and they asked me how to fix their computers. So I know I've got the ace of cards in my sleeve. No sleeve. But for me, when I was speaking with a stranger online, the first thing I would do was turn on your video camera because I want to make sure it's actually you. Like, that was my golden rule, was like, turn your video camera so I know it's you, right? And like, more often than not, boy, did they disappear, because it was probably someone who's absolutely the opposite of what you think they are behind that camera. And, I also had it where, I think when I was 6 years old, my dad had told me, don't speak to strangers and stuff like that. I was like, all right. He goes, you're not getting a webcam. I said, you don't need one. You're a 6-year-old. You don't need a webcam. I mean, they're on your phone now, so you can't really help that. But, I mean, my personal suggestion is get a nail and crack it. But, so I went on MSN back in the good old days, and I went on there, and I had a stranger contact me called Michelle. It wasn't Michelle. And then within a few sentences, and they were like, oh, why don't you turn your webcam, take your top off? And I was thinking like, uh-oh, you're not right. So it was like, block immediately. But I didn't have Facebook. Facebook didn't exist in the UK back then, in that year. Or it did, and we didn't have it. It was maybe confined to university students. But now, it's so relaxed, it's so easy, and it's so comfortable for a kid with zero risk in their palm of their hand to have a conversation with a 40-year-old bloke that they don't know is a 40-year-old bloke, to just be so open and vocal about things. And I think there's a risk of the vocalness where, and as you said about earlier on, constant gratification, constant likes, constant attention of sharing something that you shouldn't share, that is personal, that you don't understand the risks of sharing yet. And it's hard when someone doesn't understand because they can't identify what you're saying in the moment when you say it like this.
Yeah.
But sharing something that is a risk and then having that used against you is something that's a serious epidemic right now. Especially when
it's your digital footprint, isn't it? At the end of the day, it's your
personality, right? Like when you hit accept cookies, you're not like when you say, "Oh, well, they're taking your data." You're like, "I've got $2 in my bank account or £2 in my bank. I can't afford any pasta. I don't care if they steal my identity. Who cares? I'm not worth anything." Well, actually, there's a hell of a lot I can do with it. I can find out a lot of information, and it's not really your data. It's more your personality they're taking, because they're taking that, feeding that into something like GPT, which now a lot of people seem to have a problem with, and feeding that thing so it can figure out who you are as a person, right? And it all comes back to bite you. So I think, although ignorance is bliss, it causes so many problems, and it's something that, unfortunately, in this day and age now, in what the regulations allow, what our governments allow, and what we allow in turn, none of us can escape the fact that this is a serious problem that affects us all. Agreed. Predominantly children, and predominantly vulnerable people, adults or not. They are seriously disaffected by this. So, yeah, I kind of went off on a tangent there, mate. Sorry about that. But yeah, feed me back in. Pull me back in, mate. Pull me back. No,
you're good. You're good.
So, all that, stuff that's really important that you shared. Thanks, man.
It's okay.
I really appreciate it, honestly. And a lot of people out there who are watching this are going to appreciate this as well. Even if they're just skipping through the video, it doesn't matter. They're going to like it. My other question is, what's it like now? How is she? Is she okay? Is she happy?
Brilliant. She just did her GCSEs. She obviously still got struggles with her autism, her social her social skills, etc., etc. But she works on them. But she's better than ever. You know, she's really really good. She's come out the other side. I believe she's in a great place. Apart from, like I said, barring the real world issue that everyone goes through, and knowing herself and learning herself, etc. But she's studying hard. Like I said, doing her GCSE. She's smashing everything. Top of the mark. She's a fantastic singer. So you couldn't. There is definitely light at the end of the tunnel. Although you never know what this is going to hopefully it won't, but it could unearth some horrible stuff when she grows into become an adult. And hopefully, obviously, we'll be here and stuff like that to help her. And like I said, you go one way or the other. You know, you let it really affect you, and you go down a rabbit hole which you don't really want to go down, or you use it to help others. And hopefully, that's what I've and my wife have given her the platform to look. This is what you can do going forward. So hopefully, she can help others and inspire others because. Yeah, it's a story, and like I said, we've all got them. And the more you share it, the better it can help someone.
Yeah, and with that, like, you know, I'd say it's from what I've from the people I've met that have went through this sort of thing, and the parents I've spoken to and stuff around this, because I've heard a lot of stories that have not ended this way. And you know, there are some of them that are still alive, some that unfortunately aren't.
Of course,
but. You know, when like, you know, if it happens again where something like around this comes up again, like that, you know, what we're building with Sid will hopefully be a checkpoint where someone can just go in, ask it and say, I've got X problem, and it directs them to, say, the mental health support they need from whoever organisation, Children's Society, NSPCC, it doesn't matter. But, you know, with that, you know, with Sid, how have you found using it? If you found it useful, and also, you know, what kind of things do you use it for? That's kind of my question, really. Just so the parents can understand, like, you know, they may have seen this video on YouTube or something, or somewhere else in a forum, and they have no idea what we do. So, like, what would you kind of say to them that they could use it for, to prevent or intervene or deal with the after effects?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, obviously, it's like, what's Discord, that type of thing. Do you know what I mean? It's that those questions. I mean, I have no idea what it was, you know. So, as I said, you've got 1,000,001 different answers on Google. What do you trust, etc., etc. You've got a reputable platform which someone like yourself and I are all behind, where these are real life experiences, and you're not just chatting to anyone, if that makes sense. You've got some content there that is straight from not the heart, but from researched quality, you know. So I think that is evolving all the time, social media especially, and we are talking social media from a kid's perspective, of course we are. But anything content-wise, I think instead of Googling it, you go to Sid, of course you do, because you get content where it's fully researched and you can get more info than what you want. Of course it is, but who doesn't want more info?
It's true.
Who doesn't want to? If I had that, I was furious. I was furious with the world, almost, with Discord and TikTok, that you couldn't contact a customer service, as an example, to get the transcripts of their conversations. I had to go through and record all of the content and take screenshots ourselves, and it took hours and hours, you know, and
Well, there wasn't just
what these platforms are there for.
There wasn't just a button called download my data.
No, it couldn't do any of that, and that was the problem, you know. So, like I said, back to Sid, I think that's what it gives you, you know, and it's easy to use for all, so kids can use it as well, you know, and it's safe content and safe information that people can rely on.